It is time for a new tier list video since we had Mimikyu and also a balance patch being released. And as always, if it's your first time watching a tier list video of mine, I have two tier lists I make. One for top and bot path, and one for the central area, because putting every Pokemon into the same tier list doesn't really tell the story about why this Pokemon is good and where it's supposed to be played. Also, top and bot path doesn't mean how strong the Pokemon is, you know, from level 1 to level 5. So someone like Mamoswine is not S tier just because he has very strong early game. It is measuring team fights as well. It just measures how strong this Pokemon is from beginning to the end of the game if you pick it either on top or bot path. So let's go ahead and start with the path tier list first. Cinderace is still one of the worst general path Pokemon in the entire game. Very weak early game, very bad last hitting, wouldn't recommend. Gengar always put in C a bit higher than D. It's pretty bad, but Gengar always has comeback potential. Just by Unite moving and going for the enemy high level carry, Gengar can always make it back into the game, even when having a bad early game. Garchomp is very solid right now. In general, can top path quite well, and is something you should not be underestimating, and is currently also one of the highest frame rate Pokemon actually in the entire game. Cramorant got bug fixed, but I still don't want to put it much higher than B. I think it's quite fine, and I think it has potential to maybe be between A and B again. Ninetales still has dropped off a tiny bit after the nerfs to Ninetales. It's still something you can pick again. Anything in B is pickable. Anything in C is already like kinda, you shouldn't do it, and anything in D you should just not play whatsoever when it comes to top and bot path. So that's just how you have to know. B means pickable, and you will still have a good time with these Pokemon in B tier. They're just slightly worse than the ones above. That's pretty much it. Wigglytuff also quite fine. Nothing too crazy, but it's for sure something you can pick. I would probably recommend always playing something with XP share if you want to go for Wigglytuff, and just play it like a support, a defender, frontliner. Machamp is always very consistent, one of the most balanced, I would say, all-rounders in the entire game. Always does the job well, has a very high impact Unite move, has good laning phase, can always be picked. I think Absol for now goes back to B tier when it comes to top or bot path. I don't want to put it much higher. It's still quite difficult to play properly, but I do think after the recent buffs, you can consider playing Absol decently again. Slowbro, I don't know. I don't think it's S tier worthy. Also, I want to say there's currently no God tier Pokemon. I don't think there's a single Pokemon that is above everyone else by so much that I have to make it its own tier. So I think for the first time in a long time, we actually don't have a God tier. You know, compared to we had Zacian, then, you know, Umbreon, Lapras, and then, you know, the two Mewtwo's. But right now, I don't think there's one single God tier Pokemon that exists. Mr. Mime is also quite alright. It's just playable. Nothing too crazy about it. Barrier Confusion is fine. Power Stop Confusion is fine. Power Stop Psychic is also fine. All is playable. Venusaur, at least to me, is a solid A tier Pokemon. If you go for Solar Beam or Pedidance, has two very good choices. Lucario is still very strong as well. It doesn't matter if you play Power Up, Punch, Close Combat, or E-Speed Bone Rush. You can have a lot of success with it. Talonflame, after the bug fixes, also goes back to B. Flame Charge Plus was bugged. You actually couldn't go across voids with it after getting to Flame Charge Plus. And now I think it's easily solid a B tier. Talonflame is quite the underrated Pokemon in general. It's very strong and very annoying. Eldegoss to me is still very strong, doesn't matter what. I mean, it didn't really get any changes right in general in a long time, so very solid A+ Pokemon. Greninja joins Cinderace in the please don't play this in path. I wish more people would actually watch these tier lists and not play these Pokemon in top and bot path. It would be quite awesome, because it's just so bad. Quassel might surprise people, but Quassel is very strong right now. One of the best solo queue defender as well. It does a lot of damage, very high impact Unite move now. The Unite move does so much damage. Also very good laning phase, level 6 already for the damage move. Level 4 for the first evolution. And, you know, also Fury Cut is actually quite solid last hitting. Snorlax as well, I don't know if I want to put it into A, but it probably is A tier as well. I think all defender are pretty high level right now. You're going to see a lot of more defenders went to A tier. I think the defender role in general right now is very solid, and you can play almost every defender and do very well with it. Snorlax even getting some buffs, which I think bumps it into A tier. Charizard in path, I'm not a big fan of it, but it's similar to Gengar, right? This is why, like, when something is bad in path, it just depends on what they do through the mid game. And Charizard is another Pokemon. If you're behind and you just get to level 9, you can always just Unite move the highest level target and get comeback experience and kind of get back into the game. Compared to, I mean, Greninja you would say is the same, but I feel like his Unite move is not even close to the power level of someone like Charizard. So I don't think it's very similar. Pikachu is very strong right now, I would say. Solid A Pokemon, I have to say. Shouldn't be underestimated. Very solid for sure. Next up, Zaora. Zaora and Path is also quite fine. Gonna put into B tier. I think C is a bit too harsh for it. It has strong early game, a lot of damage, and you know, after the level 5 and level 7 changes, it can be played easily. God of War, I'm gonna move down. I think I was last time also into B tier. Also just, I think the B tier in general, there's gonna be a lot of B tier Pokemon maybe, but I think that's good for the game. Because again, all of those mean they're playable, but they're not too oppressive and they're not too bad either. So all of these are choices you can make in ranked without like handicapping your team or anything. Blissey after the nerfs. Mine goes from S to A plus tier. I think you do notice the Unite move nerfs a lot, but Soft Boiled and Egg Bomb is still an absolutely excellent build. Yeah, and something you can play. Alright, next up we have Blastoise. To me, a solid A tier Pokemon as well. Doesn't matter if you go Water Spout, Rapid Spin, or Surf Hydro Pump. Has a good amount of impact. Mamoswine, B tier, probably one of the worst defender, but it's still good as well. He's like one of the, he's one of the worst defender Pokemon, but the worst defender is still very, very good as well, and still much better than other Pokemon you can pick. So, solid B tier for Mamoswine as well. Sylveon currently, I'm not a big fan of it, but I think C tier is a bit too harsh for Sylveon. It does struggle a bit right now, but you know, level 4 is still very, very strong. Doesn't matter what, you have a lot of impact upon reaching level 4. Greedent, I mean, I'm gonna drop it down to B tier as well. It's not too amazing, it's not bad either. You can just play it and have a lot of success with it. Decidueye, I will put it above D tier just for the reason that Spirit Shackle has much more impact than, you know, whatever Greninja and Cinderace do. And if you have an XP share support, you can actually get to level 7 quite easily. But doesn't matter what, level 7 is early reachable. Would I still recommend playing the Decidueye in Path? Not really. Is it complete griefing? No, not either. Of course, again, early power spikes on the... I mean, what does early mean? Level 7, you know, you're strong enough. Serena is difficult right now. Where do I put Serena? In A or I think probably still B tier as well. Haven't seen much of Serena, but I do think it's also a solid Pokemon. But maybe A tier is probably a bit too high for it. But, you know, there's a lot of good around us right now. It doesn't mean it's too bad either. Dragonite in Path is quite bad. I think I'd rather stay with Dragonite than these two, though, because it can actually... Either if it goes Hyper Beam, it can secure objectives. Outrage, I feel like, still does a bit more as well than the rest. And this basic attacks early game actually do quite a lot of damage, so you can actually pressure people. Still would not recommend necessarily to play, you know, Dragonite in lane. Again, all these Pokemon are not ordered by power. I'm just ordering them by role, so it's a bit easier to look at. Attacker, then Allrounder, then Speedster, then Support, and then Defender. Just, you know, bit for the eye, a bit of visual. Doesn't mean, like, if I put Trevenant here, doesn't mean it's better than Crusher. But Trevenant also one of the best defenders right now. Easily A tier to me. Aegislash joins Serena into the B tier. Can't really put it much higher than that, I think. Hooper is still easily A plus or S tier. But I don't know if I want to put it into S tier right now, but maybe. Honestly, after the Mewtwo Y nerfs, I think Hooper probably is maybe the best support in the entire game again. You know, because there's not like something big to abuse right now that you can do. Duraludon, I mean, it's alright. I mean, my B tier is just filling up, but I think that's just how the game is right now. I mean, the game is in a pretty good state when it comes to balance, I would say. It's in a pretty good state right now. If you want to pick an auto-attack Pokemon in Path, it's always been Duraludon, and it's still a fine choice. Azumarill is currently one of my favorite Pokemon. Deserves easily A tier, maybe even A+, but I think A+ might be a bit too high still for Azumarill. Espeon, still easily A tier for me. Sword Power Psybeam is an insanely strong build. Psyshock is also still playable and very strong in Path. Delphox goes into B tier when it comes to Path. It is fine, it just needs a bit too much experience sometimes to really start going. If you want to play it in Path, I would always recommend going Fire Blast and Fire Spin. Glaceon in Path is absolutely terrible right now. Would not really recommend playing a Glaceon. Only Central Area Pokemon, honestly, really. Buzzwole. Honestly, Buzzwole is such a weird Pokemon. Like, it's so strong and so bad at the same time, but I think it has low potential, and you don't really notice like how strong Buzzwole is when you have good games with it. But of course, it can be quite difficult. Tyranitar, I want to put it into D tier, but I do think, it's miserable to play. I would not recommend, I just don't know. It's very difficult for me to recommend playing Path Tyranitar. I just can't. I'm just going to put it into D tier. It's such a struggle. You can slowly do something, but you literally don't play the game for like 6 to 7 minutes, and I can't really recommend anyone to go through that experience. Mew goes into S tier. There always has to be one Mew in the S tier, I guess, but yeah, now it's the normal Mew again after the buffs that were pretty unjustified. Mew goes back into S tier. Dodrio, probably still easily A tier. I don't think I want to put it into A+. I think it's, yeah, I think it goes into A tier. Then we have Scissor. Scissor's pretty bad right now. I think I'm going to put it down to C. Might be a bit harsh looking, but I'm really not a big fan of Scissor right now. It feels super, super weak. Clefable goes to the other supports in S tier. You can see how strong healing supports are, but it's just because they make such a big difference. Having a healing support to no healing support is just absolutely incredible, even in solo queue. But again, it's not a solo queue tier list. It's just a tier list throughout, like, for the entire game. It's for solo queue, duo queue, trio queue, 5-stack tournaments, everything. Kind of packed into how I think the Pokemon is, you know, performs through a lot of stages. Then we have Zoroark. Zoroark is difficult. Is it still A+, maybe? I think it might just be A. Actually, no. Honestly, now that Mew is meta, like, it's a good counter to Mew. And also, Mewtwo-Y is not as OP anymore. Like, it was very difficult to play Zoroark into Mewtwo-X and Mewtwo-Y. But now that both of those are nerfed, I think Zoroark is going to climb the ranks again. At least I think so. Urshifu, Wicked Blow in lane. Like, I can't recommend playing it whatsoever right now. I'm gonna put it into B tier, maybe even lower actually. Honestly, Wicked Blow in Path is pretty bad. I used to put it higher, but I just can't do it anymore. It goes down into C tier. Sableye, I think solid B. I mean, it's just, yeah, weird Pokemon, but it is what it is. Dragapult, one of the worst Path Pokemon you can pick, one of the worst Pokemon in the entire game right now. So even worse when you pick it on top or bot path. Comfey, honestly, as well, is quite strong. I just have to put it into A+ tier. Whenever there's like strong melees around, like Zacian, Blaziken, Mimikyu, Urshifu, Mewtwo-X, Lapras, you know, like Comfey just gets stronger. And right now, one of the best Pokemon in the game still, or the best Pokemon in the entire game is probably Zacian. So with Zacian being the strongest Pokemon, Comfey will always be strong as well. Goodra. I mean, I have Goodra in B tier just because of the anti-healing items that got added, which I think hurt Goodra a lot. And in general, like, you can see there's a lot of strong defender Pokemon right now. So I think B tier is quite fair for Goodra. It is currently the lowest performing by win rate. And we always have to, you know, I do have to take win rates also, I feel like, into account when making tier lists sometimes at least. Lapras, still not S tier anymore, but still easily A+, I would say. Maybe A, but probably A+ is a bit of a safe option. Chandelure, I'm honestly not a big Chandelure fan right now, but I think it's still Pokemon you can always play and have success on. So it goes also into the B tier. Umbreon is still very strong, super annoying. I think these are the 3 best defender Pokemon. And right afterwards we have like Trevenant, Crustle, and then we have Snorlax, Blastoise, and then, you know, these 3 right behind. But again, you can see the defender pool is pretty good right now. A lot of very actually, every defender is playable. Every defender is playable, and you can do quite well with it. Then we have Leafeon. I think Leafeon I think it's still one of the strongest Path Pokemon you can play, especially in solo queue as well. Stays into A+ for me, even after the nerfs. Inteleon easily goes into S tier. I don't think that's a big surprise. Snipe Shot, Liquidation are both insane. It has the best lasted in the entire game with Water Gun. It shouldn't be in a secret. It's a good early game, good mid game, good late game Pokemon. One of the best carries. So, yeah. And now it's quite difficult. So, Mewtwo's. Where do I put the Mewtwo's now? Actually, Scyther. I forgot Scyther, but Scyther is... I can't recommend playing it right now, I would say. Surging Strikes Urshifu as well. I think Surging Strikes Urshifu did get nerfed pretty hard. And I think it's only a Central Area Pokemon right now. So I wouldn't recommend playing it in Path at all, even especially after the nerfs. Because now you need to get to level 5 fast, and then you have to make use of the power. And Kapfu, of course, can't quite do it. And late game, it got nerfed a good amount as well. So, I think Mewtwo-X is still S tier now, after the Mewtwo-Y nerfs, honestly. I think Mewtwo-X is incredibly strong and very annoying still with Future Sight. Mewtwo-Y, I think I'm going to put into A+ tier. I don't know if I could put into S tier. Like, to me, Mewtwo-X feels stronger, but I could be super wrong on this. Again, this is my own opinion, and own opinions can be super wrong as well. Don't take this with 100% accuracy. I don't know everything as well. I have wrong opinions. Like, I play my own games, and I try to understand what happens out of my games, and I can be insanely wrong as well and can read stuff super wrong. It's just kind of an indicator on how I think it's going to be. Again, tier lists are personal opinions. I try to get a lot of information into it from other players, from win rates, from looking at tournaments and stuff, but in the end it's quite difficult to still figure it out. Mewtwo-Y felt not too great in the games I've played, but still the Unite move has insane impact, so I think it's probably still either S or A+ tier, doesn't matter what. And Mewtwo-X felt better to me, but I could be super wrong on this. Maybe it also deserves, honestly, A+ tier. But I don't know, whenever I play it, I destroy on it, so I don't know what to say. Blaziken, after the buffs, easily A tier. Maybe even A+. No, I think A+ might not be quite there yet. but it has a lot of potential and is a very good Pokemon. And then we have Mimikyu, finally down to Mimikyu. And where do I put Mimikyu? Honestly, I think I'm going to put Mimikyu into A tier for now, but it has potential to be higher than A tier. But Mimikyu is super fun. It's very, very healthy for the game. It's a high skill cap Pokemon, and I enjoyed it a lot. It does have a lot of issues as well. It is quite squishy. The Unite move gets interrupted easily, and it doesn't really have good laning phase either, so can struggle there as well. Maybe I probably in Central Area will be a bit higher, but when it comes to Path, I think A tier is where it fits perfectly. So that's for the first, this is it for the first tier list. Man, I can't even talk anymore after talking a lot. While putting together this video, I actually realized that this is the Path tier list, and I completely spaced out and forgot that Mewtwo X and Mewtwo Y, I didn't place based on how good they're in Path. So I think Mewtwo Y in Path is actually much, much worse than in Central Area, of course. I'm going to go on to A tier. And Mewtwo X also in Path is not too amazing or too crazy, so I'm also going to bump it down to A+ tier. So alright, this is updated, and I hope this looks a bit better. Alright, heading into the Central Area tier list now, again starting with Cinderace. I think Cinderace is a solid B right now. After Mewtwo Y nerfs, it obviously goes a bit higher, but it's still not nothing too impressive right now. Garchomp, actually one of my favorite Central Area Pokemon, goes easily into the A tier. Cramorant, after the bug fix, I think can also be easily A tier again. You should not underestimate Dive and Air Slash, it's still very, very strong. And now that the bug of Dive doing less damage got fixed, I think it has chance of being much higher again. Ninetales shouldn't be in Central Area, but I mean, it can work. It's one of those Pokemon that is actually quite fun with Veil and Gleam in there. And but it's still, of course, worse than the average Pokemon. Gengar, I really can't put much higher than B tier, I think. It's still quite difficult to play Gengar sometimes. If you're a good Gengar player, you can, of course, make, insane things work, but I wouldn't recommend it. Machamp, can't recommend playing in Central Area right now. It's not really a late game carry or general carry for early game either. Like either in Central Area, you want to have something that's insanely OP at level 5 or something very strong in late game. And if you're neither one of those, then you should not be in Central Area. Pretty straightforward. Absol, I think back to B tier for now. I'm not sure if I can put it higher yet. I still need more testing on Absol to really see how much potential it has, but I think you can totally play it again without feeling bad about it, which is already pretty good enough, right? Venusaur is a solid A. Central Area Pokemon, maybe even actually probably higher. We even see it in tournaments being played. Pelidance is good, Solar Beam, Giga Drain is good. Like it's his place in the highest level, so it's pretty solid. Also in Solo Queue, has pretty good impact on Unite move. We say Lucario, one of the worst Central Area Pokemon you can probably play. Talonflame, again, I think it's quite underrated. So I do think it's a bit better than other speedsters. I think it's still better than Gengar and Absol by a tiny bit. Not by much, but enough for me to put it a higher tier. Then what is up next? We have Greninja. Still struggling right now. It's not grief picking it, but also don't expect miracles out of, playing Greninja. Charizard. I mean, I think Charizard actually quite fine in the current meta still. I think I can recommend playing it. It's quite decent. Zaora as well, solid A tier. Gardevoir, solid A tier as well, just a very consistent attacker when it comes to Central Area. Only promise if you get invaded, it can be quite rough. Sylveon, I can't really recommend right now playing it in Central Area. There's just much better Pokemon for you to play. Has fine early game, but the late game is just too bad. It still works if you do like a, Central Area sharing with another Pokemon where you both get level 4 very fast. It's fine. Besides that, wouldn't recommend. Pikachu as well. And please don't play it in Central Area. It can work, but not too amazing. Decidueye goes into A+ after the knock-knock buffs. This is for Spirit Checker though. I think Razor Leaf would still be somewhere here in between these two. This is for Spirit Checker mainly into A+. Serena. I mean, Serena is actually not too bad of a Central Area Pokemon, but I honestly can't really feel good about recommending it either. But it gets level 6 very fast in Central Area, but still, yeah, I don't think you want to necessarily put it into Central Area because you will not get attack weight stacks in too often, and attack weight stacks are super necessary for Serena to shine, because Stomp does do a lot more damage when you have attack weight stacks, and it's very reliable on those. Dragonite is quite solid, something you can pick and just have a good time on. Hyper Beam, Outrage, both are very solid. Not sure if it's higher than B tier, but you can for sure pick Dragonite and have success. Aegislash, not the biggest fan of Central Area. You do get level 7 very fast, which is very important. But besides that, yeah. I mean, it's alright right now. You can for sure play it, but again, don't expect miracles. Duraludon, I mean, I think it's very underrated of a Pokemon, but I mean, I still don't like it all too much. I mean, maybe A tier is fair for Duraludon overall. But yeah, nah. I can't. I mean, it's alright. It's one of the better attacker Pokemon. I think it's actually quite fun, right? Yeah, it's quite fine. Azumarill, another thing where Serena is just the same, where you need attack rate stacks, because Aqua Tail does a crazy amount of damage with attack rate stacks early on, and you get to level 4 very fast as well. So, but it does do pretty well in Sintu area as well, for sure. Espeon is also quite fine in Sintu area, but I don't want to put it higher than B tier. Delphox is still solid A. Doesn't matter if you go Mystical Fire Flame Charge or Fire Spin, Fire Blast. Even though I would not recommend Fire Spin in Sintu area, Mystical Fire Flame Charge, if you go, is still quite decent. Glaceon. I mean, I think Icy Wind is pretty strong, but I don't know if I can put it too high right now. We'll see how the next patch evolves into, and then maybe we can put, you know, Glaceon a bit higher. Buzzwole, it's one of those Pokemon where I say if you get to level 5 fast, which you do, you can snowball the game. But overall, you know, late game is quite bad, and I wouldn't recommend playing Buzzwole necessarily in Sintu area when it comes to ranked, but it can for sure work. It just has very good laning phase as well, right? Like, it's very good on top of what path for early game, so why would you waste it and put it into Sintu area? That's kind of the same with some of these Pokemon up here as well. Just no reason to. Same for like Lucario. But even Lucario is just bad in Sintu area because it needs attack rate stacks, and it doesn't have a good late game. Tyranitar is actually quite strong right now, I have to say. I don't know if I want to put it higher than A tier, but Tyranitar is super strong, I think. It's just annoying to play. That's it. It just takes a long time to actually get to where you want to be. Mew, I think, goes into S tier and Sintu area as well. Same for Path. They should have not buffed Mew. I'm gonna say it over and over again. They should have not buffed it. Dodrio, easily A+ tier. Same for Zoroark, easily A+ tier. I'm not sure if it's S though. Yeah, I don't think so. Zacian is for sure going to the S tier for Sintu area as well. In tournaments, you will mainly see it down on top path, but I think in solo queue it's much better in Sintu area. So it always depends on what kind of format you play. Scizor, absolutely terrible in Sintu area, can't recommend. Scyther I think is fine, but there's just better options there, but I think B tier is totally fair for Scyther too. Dragapult is pretty bad right now. I don't think it's D tier, but I think it's easily C tier. It can counter pretty hard by, you know, some of the meta Pokemon like Mewtwo's. It struggled very much against them, and Inteleon as well. Liquidation just one-shots Dragapult while it's flying around, so quite difficult to play. Next up we have Chandelure, which I think dropped a lot in Sintu area. I don't like it right now whatsoever, but it's still fine. It's still playable, you know, but the cooldowns seem quite difficult. Wicked Blow Shifu, I think easily A tier still. Is a solid build that always has success just because it has insane last hitting as well. And Surging Strikes with Shifu, I think it's A+ maybe now. I mean, I'm not sure if I should put into S or A+ tier. The early game is still the same, but late game team fights are much more difficult now for Shifu to handle. And for that reason, I'm just going to put it down by a bit. But it's still very strong. And, you know, all the ones in A+ are super good Pokemon. Leafeon, I'm not the biggest fan of Leafeon in Sintu area. I think it's much better in top or bot path, personally. But it's still quite fine, of course, if you decide to go for it. It's still pretty solid. Mewtwo X, S tier. Mewtwo Y, I mean, probably still S tier as well when it comes to Sintu area, but it's not oppressive anymore. It doesn't feel like you're instantly going to lose the game when you play Mewtwo Y, so yeah. I mean, I think probably S tier still as well, honestly, for it doesn't matter what. But you notice the nerfs and you can win against it now. Honestly, I kind of want to put it here, but it's still very hard to judge. I need to see more Mewtwo Ys. The problem is that everyone stopped playing it, so it's very hard to judge. But it's still very strong, of course. Honestly, I'm gonna put it into A+. Put it into A+. I've decided. Blaziken is quite fine in Sintu area too. Not the biggest fan of it though. I mean, yeah, it's not really a late game carry, but I think it can be played in Sintu area quite fair as well. Inteleon also goes into the ST here. Liquidation Acrobatics is absolutely broken, or Liquidation Phase Stinger for Sintu area too. And then we have Mimikyu, which I think goes into A+ when it comes to Sintu area. Quite strong, has a lot of potential, and I'm a big fan of Mimikyu right now. I feel like this tier list looks a bit weird. I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if I'm too happy with it, but these are my first opinions. I'm gonna check if I want to change something. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you also think about the Sintu area tier list, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!